ring sets out, the ring goes south, and now the ring goes east. Who came up with these titles? George Lucas?
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
Seriously. What is The Ring Goes East? Lost and adrift in the moors of Emyn Muil, Frodo and Sam run afoul of Gollum, the creature who once possessed the One Ring and now wants it back. However, upon realizing that by bearing the ring he has power over Gollum, Frodo soon ropes Gollum into guiding them to Mordor. But, beaten and cowed as he may be, Gollum still has some tricks up his sleeve, as Frodo and Sam shall soon learn. How does the world of The Ring Goes East work? Okay, so once again, I will not be describing the basic world-building aspects of Middle-earth, as I assume most people are already familiar with those, but instead I will be pointing out specific details in the world that surprised or stood out to me. One aspect that I enjoyed, and which I think was a reason for Tolkien cordoning this off as a distinct section, is the parallels between The Ring Goes East and The Ring Sets Out. Both involve Frodo going on an adventure and meeting new people who help him along his journey, and both are structured along an episodic format. However, The Ring Goes East is much darker than its predecessor. Frodo is now missing most of his friends, with only Sam to help him. The companions and guides he encounters are less jolly and helpful, instead being either good but busy with their own problems or actively malevolent. And the ring is now starting to exploit the cracks in Frodo's mind, which makes the next point more believable. Something which I think this book gets across much better than the Peter Jackson films is how the ring is slowly turning Frodo nastier. The films do a good job of showing what a burden the ring is to Frodo, but as a kid, I always thought Frodo turning to the dark side of Mount Doom came out of left field. In The Ring Goes East, though, we have Sam notice how using the ring to keep Gollum in line brings out the worst in Frodo. And it's this macabre dance between Frodo and Gollum, where the ring is the one thing powerful enough to command Gollum, but its power is of a corrupting nature. So not only does using it make Frodo meaner, but probably contributes to Gollum's eventual decision to betray them. That was another thing that stood out for me. The main focus of The Ring Goes East is ultimately Gollum. However, unlike in the films, we don't really see things from his perspective. His role in the story is largely in how he affects Frodo and Sam, and while in the Jackson films we get to see his internal struggle from within, in the books the most we see is Sam noticing Gollum talking to himself. There are moments of struggle between Gollum and Smeagol, but they're shown through the lens of Sam's perception. There's never a definite moment when Smeagol fully reasserts his personality and dedicates himself to aiding Frodo and Sam. And when we get to Shelob, it turns out that Gollum had at least been considering feeding them to her ever since their first meeting. So I'd say Smeagol is a much more sympathetic character in the films than in the books. At the same time though, this removes my biggest complaint with Gollum's character in the films, that being Sam's treatment of him. As a kid, I hated Sam, because to me it was obvious that Smeagol was just a nice fellow who'd had a bad turn in life, and Sam's constant bullying of him finally caused him to snap and betray the hobbits. And the books though, since Smeagol never fully comes back, Sam's suspicions turn out to be well-founded, and Gollum himself is a much more complicated character in the books. I would liken him to Kichijiro from Silence, someone that you can't help but feel pity and revulsion towards. And even as you want Smeagol to be redeemed, you can see how Gollum keeps dragging him down, and the personalities are much more closely enmeshed than they are in the films. I'm honestly not sure which version I like better, because they both leave me wanting, but each for different reasons. Someone I do prefer in the books, though, is Faramir. He's a lot nicer in the books, and the closest callback to figures like Tom Bombadil, who helped Frodo in The Ring Sets Out. He's still tempted by the ring, and he's also busy fighting Mordor, but he helps out Frodo and Sam as best he can, and is the last really honorable person they meet before the end of their journey. I also quite liked the quiet moments we get with Frodo and Sam together. I was especially touched when Sam thinks to himself, "I love him," and demonstrates this love by making things easier for Frodo. Until I remembered that Sam still regards Frodo as his master, so this love and demonstration of it is largely Sam feeling gratitude towards his better. that kind of soured things for me. But then there's a later moment when Sam slips up and calls him Frodo instead of Master or Mister, so... We finally get to see Mordor in this book, and honestly, it's kind of boring. Some might argue that all of Tolkien's travelogue sections are boring, but in the previous cases, Tolkien was writing about places he liked, and even if you didn't hold his same idealized view of nature, you could still appreciate his descriptions of Arcadia. In Mordor, though, every place Frodo and Sam visit is basically just, oh no, it's polluted and very possibly industrialized, they've killed the land! And the book starts to feel like Tolkien had an axe to grind. Once again, I can see why if Tolkien had a puppy, Michael Moorcock would kick it just for fun. The biggest surprise with The Ring Goes East is honestly the inclusion of Shelob, because it makes me realize just how much of Frodo and Sam's plot in the Two Towers film comes from Jackson. I can sort of see why this is, though, given Peter Jackson's 3 tapes at once approach in contrast to Tolkien's play rewind style. If you put Shelob in the climax of Two Towers, after all, Frodo and Sam don't really have much to do before they destroy the ring. But if Frodo and Sam get their own book like this, I think Shelob makes a perfect climax. In spite of this, though, I do think Jackson's climax for the pair of hobbits shows a good understanding of what does The Ring Goes East have to say. Just as in The Treason of Isengard, The Ring Goes East focuses on its heroes experiencing doubt. Frodo and Sam begin the story literally lost and wondering if they're on the right path, and as the book progresses, the uncertainty takes on a figurative form, with Sam wondering at the end if it was all even worth it. However, just as in The Treason of Isengard, our hero's faith is rewarded. Though I think The Ring Goes East drives home more skillfully just how hard it is to keep faith when things are at their worst. Frodo and Sam even wonder how much easier their trials will seem if they ever succeed and their adventure is turned into a story. Sometimes, I think the struggle between Norse saga conventions and Tolkien's own experiences lead to disconnect. But when Sam says things like, "It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass." I think it hits home perfectly, and is truly beautiful. Final verdict. Thanks to Shelob, the woman count of this story comes to 1! Shelob is a girl, so she counts. She counts. Yes. Now, as for The Ring Goes East, I think The Lord of the Rings is a challenging and often frustrating book. And yet, when it reaches heights like these, I think it makes the moments of frustration worth it. It's all enough for me to give The Ring Goes East a 9 out of 10. And while I, like Frodo and Sam, don't know how things will turn out in the end, this book has reaffirmed my faith that whatever happens, it'll be alright. In the meantime, I'm Marco Keen, signing off, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, and you'd like to see me make more, please leave a like or comment down below, share my video via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or other means, and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you would like to help this channel out, I now have a Patreon, which you can contribute to via the link in the description. If you sign up, you'll get sweet bonuses like an internet hug, early access to videos, and the ability to vote in polls to help me decide which works to cover next. Thank you all, and I will see you in the next one.